Hello and welcome back to Insurance in Canada. I'm your host, Rick Pineda. So glad you can join me today. On today's episode, we're looking at three articles. The first one, the government insurer MPI, Manitoba Public Insurance, is looking to increase rates for their basic auto plan for next year. Next story, we're looking at auto theft claims costs have been increasing in Atlantic Canada. Yes, Maritimers, I finally have a insurance story involving the Maritimes. And our last story we're going to be looking at today, it's a survey that was done indicating that some homeowners might be skipping insurance or filing insurance claims because they fear they wouldn't pass a subsequent inspection. So we'll take a look at that. So without further ado, let's take a look at insurance in the news. So our first story today comes from Manitoba. So for those of you who are unaware, in certain provinces, there's a crown corporation that sells the basic automobile insurance coverages for that province, and all drivers, all vehicle owners must purchase those mandatory coverages from that crown corporation. So British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, those three have those sort of government-run insurance schemes. So the mandatory coverages in those three provinces are either purchased through ICBC in British Columbia, SGI in Saskatchewan, or MPI, Manitoba Public Insurance in Manitoba. Any optional coverages, higher liability limits, loss or damage coverage, buy down deductibles can either be purchased through the Crown Corporation, ICBC, MPI, or SGI, or through private insurance companies. So private insurance companies still operate in those provinces. They still sell automobile insurance in those provinces, but they don't sell the mandatory coverages that's required in those three particular provinces. So the story, like I said, today comes out of Manitoba. So the government insurer MPI is looking to increase rates for next year. So let's take a look at this story. So public insurer makes case for rate increase. Manitoba Public Insurance MPI is requesting a 2.07% increase to the overall rates of its universal compulsory automobile insurance basic for the 2026-2027 insurance year. MPI filed its general rate application, GRA, with the Provincial Public Utilities Board on June 25th for the 2026-2027 insurance year begins April 1st, 2026. If approved, Manitoba drivers would see an increase of $21 to the average private passenger vehicle policy next year. PUB, or the Public Utilities Board, normally issues its order in December, so I'm sure Manitobans are rather miffed at the thought of paying more for your automobile insurance. But trust me, as a broker here in BC, I used to be a broker in BC, but no, I'm currently a broker in Ontario. A 2.07% increase, I would love for our insurers to only increase their rates by 2.07%. Over the last 5-6 years, we've been seeing much greater rate increases than 2.07% from all the insurers that my particular brokerage represents, and pretty much every insurer in Ontario, because in Ontario it's all private insurance companies that provide the mandatory coverages and the optional coverages. So I'm sure Manitobans aren't happy, but believe me, it could be a lot worse, because that's what you see in other provinces. I'm sure Albertans passing through can tell you stories from what they pay in for their auto insurance there. The proposed rate increase reflects cost pressures on the industry. In a press release, MPI notes that auto insurers across North America are dealing with higher claims costs because modern cars are more complex, contain advanced technologies, and are more expensive to repair. That's very true. It's kind of a dual-edged sword that all these technologies, all these sensors, all this automation to some degree with some vehicles that exist in order to make the cars more safer, and you would expect claims costs to decrease because of that. However, on the other side of the sword is the fact that it costs quite a bit to repair these systems, calibrate these systems when they do get damaged in automobile accidents. So yeah, you might see claims costs decrease on your liability and accident benefit side, but on the other hand, you're going to see those claim costs skyrocket on the physical damage, loss or damage to the automobile side. While the market remains volatile and the cost of claims continue to rise, this rate request truly emphasizes MPI's commitment to keep auto insurance affordable for all Manitobans. Satvir Jatana, MPI's president and CEO, says in the release, the general rate application points to factors such as increased collision repair claims, severity, and high total loss claims, even though the net total loss severity was down 4% from 2023 to 2024. Previous year saw double-digit year-over-year increases. So, yeah, severity might have decreased 4% from 2023 to 2024. It doesn't mention about frequency, though, which is another aspect to claims costs that will affect it. So, claim severity, how much you pay on average per claim, and frequency, how often claims occurs. In the GRA, MPI is also introducing an adjustment to the deductible for the basic insurance product from $750 to $100,000. The insurer will add a new $750 option to the list of lower deductibles it offers through its extension line of business, which already includes $200, $300, $500 options. It's also proposing an overall increase of 2% to its extension line of business, which includes products like rental vehicle insurance, additional third-party liability insurance, and lower deductibles for basic insurance. The insurance is applying to the Public Utilities Board to expand the merit side of the driver safety rating scale to include a new level 20. Those who move into this level will save 53% of the cost of their vehicle and driver's license insurance in the 2026-2027 insurance year. This is great news for Manitoba's safest drivers, and we are proud that this is a fair and simple system that allows us to recognize the contribution towards safer roads through incentives like discounts on insurance premiums, Jatana says. If approved, the rate proposed would be effective April 1st, 2026, but because renewal dates are staggered, some vehicle owners may not pay their new rates until March 31st, 2027. So it's always been an interesting debate, the whole public insurance versus private insurance scheme, which one is better, or which provides better service, better rates to the public that of the province they function in. The United States, as far as I'm aware, there are no states that use a public insurer. It's just in Canada that utilizes that, and only in certain provinces, like I said, BC, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan. Quebec has a unique system as well, but we're focusing on Manitoba. So other provinces have looked into going with the public option. I know Alberta definitely had a report that came out a couple of months ago about the option of looking into going with the same system as the those three neighboring provinces, going with the government insurance scheme to see if that would be a better option to try and stabilize rates for Alberta. But at this point, there's no indication that Alberta is going to go that route. I know here in Ontario, the public insurance option pops up every now and then, but there's been no serious pursuit by the provincial government here in Ontario to consider the public insurance option. But that's always simmering on the back burner. So maybe one day, maybe not. Well, it's always a wait and see game. So our next story comes from the Maritimes. Auto theft claims costs rising in Atlantic Canada. Auto theft claims costs jumped 275% in Atlantic Canada in the past decade. Wow, that's a huge jump over a 10-year period. But auto thefts have always been a problem throughout the rest of Canada, so there's no reason why we would think that Atlantic Canada would be insulated from that same issue. New Brunswick has become Atlantic Canada's auto theft capital, according to new data from the Insurance Bureau of Canada. That's very interesting. I would have thought it would have been Nova Scotia, just because of the large container port that they have in Nova Scotia, making it easier for vehicles to be shuffled out of the Maritimes through Nova Scotia. But looks like it's New Brunswick gets that crown that they definitely didn't want. IBCO, the Insurance Bureau of Canada, reports auto theft insurance claims costs in Atlantic Canada have jumped by 275% over the past 10 years. In the Maritime, auto theft claims costs in 2024 exceeded 31 million, up from 8.4 million in 2014. Wow. And more than half of those costs, 16 million plus, were spent in New Brunswick. The province reported 788 auto theft claims in 2024. Not only that, but over the past decade, the three cities with the largest increases in auto theft claims costs in Atlantic Canada were St. John, Moncton, and Fredericton, all in New Brunswick. All orders of government should continue to take action on the auto theft crisis in Atlantic Canada and across the country. However, it's most critical to tackle the crisis in New Brunswick to ensure it doesn't become one of the country's primary hotspots for vehicle theft, says Amanda Dean, IBC's Ontario and Atlantic Vice President. Yeah, that would be a concern, but I'm quite sure New Brunswick is way, way behind other provinces like Ontario and Quebec when it comes to vehicle theft incidences. So it might be high for Atlantic Canada, but putting it in perspective with the rest of Canada, it's not as bad, but probably people in New Brunswick would disagree with me, and I don't blame them. Although New Brunswick's claims counts are high, rising by 428% in the last decade, its theft claims costs dropped by 4.8% between 2023 and 2024, signaling mild progress in the auto theft prevention. So that's theft claims costs. So it could be that cheaper vehicles are being stolen, or vehicles not as valuable are being stolen, which could account for the lower claims costs. It doesn't indicate that 4.8% was a reduction in incidences of vehicles being stolen. Nova Scotia saw the next highest auto theft claims costs in the region, more than 10 million in 2024. Theft claims rose by 12.4% in 2014 and 2024. Theft claims costs rose by 5.6% in Newfoundland and Labrador over the same period, totaling more than 4 million in 2024. Prince Edward Island saw the biggest drop, 18.8% in auto theft claims in Atlantic between 2023 and 2024. Well, I guess there's benefits to living on an island, both for Newfoundland and Prince Edward Island. You steal a vehicle there, now you got to figure out how you're going to get that vehicle off the island in order to do something with that stolen vehicle. So I guess it's a little easier to try and combat auto theft when you're living on an island. Auto theft is not isolated to Atlantic Canada, that's for sure, which has recently become a hotbed for stolen vehicle exports. Auto theft claims costs have jumped by 65% in Alberta over the past 3 years, hitting the biggest cities the hardest. IBC recently reported their stolen cars are being re-registered and re-VIN before being sent to the rest of Canada. IBC is urging progress on auto theft prevention to continue and for new measures to be implemented. We need to treat vehicle theft as a national crisis that it is. It affects people and communities. The National Action Plan on Combating Auto Theft, launched on May 20th, 2024, focuses on disrupting organized crime groups involved in auto theft by enhancing prevention, intervention, intelligence sharing, and recovery efforts. But IBC says more needs to be done to prevent the widespread nature of auto theft nationally. Yeah, that's very true, but in the end, it's going to be up to the provincial governments to look at those action plans that they need to try and prevent the auto theft from occurring in their province. It's great having a national auto theft combat plan. It helps to try and prevent those vehicles being re-VIN, being sent across the other provinces where they try and register those vehicles in those particular provinces. But in the end, it's going to be at the grassroots level to try and stop auto theft in the beginning. The local authorities working with the other police authorities, other government departments in that particular province to try and really stem the tide in that of auto theft in that particular province. So to see what's being stolen, I've looked at this particular organization in a previous episode, the Ekate Association. We looked at them when we looked at the rising incidences of auto theft in Alberta, and I showed you what vehicles are being stolen in Alberta. But let's take a look in the Maritimes. So this would be for 2023. We don't have the data yet for 2024, at least. Ekate has not put out the list for 2024. So here's Canada-wide, the top 10 most stolen vehicles for 2023. Toyota Highlander #1, Dodge Ram, the 2022 version, Lexus's, Hondas, Toyota's, Honda Civic, Jeep Wranglers, Land Rovers, which is not a surprise to see on the list, Suburban, Yukon, Tahoe series, Sierra 1500. As I said in the previous episode, usually when you see pickup trucks on a most stolen vehicle list, those pickup trucks are going to be used to commit other crimes, other property crimes, just because of the amount of stuff they can obviously carry. That's normal. Sometimes pickup trucks will be sent overseas by the organized crime gangs. But like I said, most of the time it's going to be, especially if it's an older version like we see down in number 10, the Silverado Sierra 1500 series, but the most often stolen year is 2006. So more than likely that's not a vehicle that's being sent overseas. That's being used to commit other crimes here in Canada. So that's Canada-wide. Let's take a look. Ekate Association just groups all the maritime provinces into one category as opposed to the other provinces where they're individual. So this is for all of Atlantic Canada. So starting with the Dodge Ram series, the Silverado Sierra 1500 series F-150, pickup trucks 1, 2, and 3. And maybe the Dodge Ram being the 2022 year, possible. Maybe that's being sent overseas. But like I said, 3 years old, especially the Silverado F1 Series 2018, more than likely that's being used to commit other crimes, probably somewhere in the Atlantic. Could be sent other areas in Canada as well. Honda Civic, CRVs, Toyotas. The Hyundai Elantra is an interesting one to see at number 8. I really can't explain why the Hyundai Elantra. I don't think I've seen that in other top 10 lists in other areas of Canada, so I'm not sure what's going on with the Hyundai Elantra, what makes that such a tempting theft target, if it's just theft of convenience for joyriders, because I can't imagine there's a big demand for Hyundai Elantras in those continents that most likely are going to be a recipient of stolen vehicles in Canada. The Toyota Highlander, no, that's not surprising. That's always a high demand overseas. And the Corsair MKC Mariner Escape series compact SUVs. Once again, kind of surprised to see that there. Why? I'm not sure why the Escape or the Corsair would be a high theft target. 2017 version as well, so I guess there's a reason. But then again, number of thefts is only 31, so that's kind of not exactly a high number, but it's just weird to see that version being listed on the top 10 list. So that's what's going on in Atlantic Canada when it comes to auto thefts. But like I said, hopefully the New Brunswick government is getting on that, because that's something you'd want to get on sooner rather than later. And our last story, this comes from Realtor.com, which is an American website. There is Realtor.ca, which is the Canadian version, but this story is coming out of the US. And when in my very first episode, I mentioned I'd mostly be focusing on stories about Canada, but there is interesting stories I see coming out from other parts of the world, which may indicate attitudes that probably do exist in Canada, but there's no study to prove that. But coming from our American neighbors, I'm sure something like this, you probably, if you were to do a survey here in Canada, you might find there's similar attitudes that this particular article is trying to convey. So from Realtor.com, 1 in 4 homeowners skip insurance claims over fear of failing inspection, but it could cost them in the long run. Owning a home has never been more expensive, and for many, the pressure is starting to show. With property taxes, insurance premiums, and maintenance costs climbing, homeowners are cutting corners where they can. In 2025, more than 7 in 10 homeowners put off renovations, according to a survey by Guardian Service, a company that helps consumers shop for insurance policies, and that's in the States, so don't go running off to Guardian Service to try and get you to help, or get them to help you to try and save on your insurance. As far as I know, they don't operate in Canada. While budget concerns are the most common reason, fear of filing an insurance claim to help pay for the costs also plays a surprisingly large role, but that fear can come at a high cost. Delaying repairs or avoiding claims could also reduce your insurance payout or leave you footing a much larger bill down the line. Here's what you need to know before you put up another fix. Rising labor and material prices, inflation, and broader economic uncertainty have made it harder to afford professional renovations. For many, that means kicking the can down the road or attempting a DIY fix. In some cases, yeah, DIY, go for it. If it's a simple fix, but if it's something that actually caused significant damage, I mean, you're not going to, I mean, you can try and DIY fix fire damage that occurred, say, in your kitchen, but that might be out of the skill set of most homeowners to try and fix that kind of damage. You know, trying to replace a light fixture that's no longer functions, that's one thing, but if we're looking at some sort of damage that insurance would actually cover, yeah, that might be a little more difficult to DIY unless you're very skilled when it comes to doing your own home repairs. Even when homeowners might be able to cash in on their home insurance policy to help cover the cost, nearly 1 in 4 homeowners say they avoided filing an insurance claim out of concern that it might trigger an inspection that they wouldn't be able to pass. That fear is even more common among younger homeowners, with a full third of Gen Z respondents admitting they were too nervous to file. It's more understandable that this attitude would take place in the U.S. Just because of the wonky insurance market that they have down in the States, especially certain states like California and Florida, that have significant difficulties trying to keep insurance companies from leaving the market completely. So I understand that, just because when it comes to filing a claim in those areas that have a high propensity of natural disasters, wildfires in California, hurricanes in Florida, you're pretty much looking to give the insurance company a reason not to renew. You'll be finding that is an issue, especially in California. People have placed claims with their insurer because of the wildfire damage. Now they're not being renewed and finding it very difficult to try and find alternate coverage because nobody wants to insure in those areas that are wildfire prone. So you don't see... You see that here in Canada, but it's not as bad as it is in the U.S. We looked at previous episode, people in Calgary who are finding it difficult to find coverage for hail because of the propensity of hailstorms in Calgary. I know they had another big hail storm. I think it was last week, if I remember correctly. So that's going to exacerbate the problems for the people of Calgary for trying to find hail coverage, or trying to find hail coverage at affordable rates, something that the average homeowner can afford. So, like I said, those sort of issues with people being dropped by their insurer after placing a claim, certain types of claims, yeah, that's a concern with here in Canada, but I'm not sure if it's to the point where people are afraid to place claims because of they're worried about not being renewed. It mentions here wouldn't be able to pass an inspection. Yes, insurance companies in Canada do inspect the properties that they insure. They always have a right to inspect the properties that they insure. You don't see it too often with homeowners policies. You see it more often on the commercial line side, but it is possible, especially for higher value homes, older homes. An insurance company might request an inspection. So not placing the claim is not necessarily going to save you from not being inspected by your insurance company. It's some insurance companies, there are certain factors that will trigger an automatic inspection. Some do it randomly. They pick amongst the policies that they've issued at this one and that one will be inspected. But that's just on a random basis. So, like I said, not doing the claim, like I said, that's not necessarily going to save you from an inspection. But delaying these types of renovations or repairs and the claims that can help fund them might allow small problems to spiral into structural damage. When that happens, or when an insurer finds out a major issue was never disclosed, these decisions can leave homeowners vulnerable to big, costlier problems later on. So yeah, if there is an incident like a fire or a flood claim, broken pipe, I mean, it has to be declared to the insurance company, especially if it occurred prior to the policy being initiated, but even during the term. So those things have to be disclosed to the insurer, and the insurance company is going to want to see that that damage was repaired. If they're not paying for the repairs, they're going to expect you to cover that loss. And they're going to expect you to be able to provide receipts to show that the repairs were done. If you don't, then you're not going to be renewed. What starts as a minor leak or a loose shingle can turn into serious structural damage, mold, or even a full roof replacement if left unaddressed. And if your insurer determines that the damage resulted from neglect, they may deny the claim entirely, leaving you to pay out of pocket for what have been a covered issue. So if you're a homeowner, you should already be saving for things as roof replacements, furnace replacements, air conditioning replacements. You should be saving for that now, because these can be rather expensive, especially with inflation factoring in the material costs. Also, don't forget the tariffs issue as well. We don't always produce the materials needed to replace your roof, replace your furnace. Yes, furnaces are made in Canada, but that might not be possible for your area. So you should be saving for that now, because insurance companies, they don't cover what should have been maintenance issues. So if your roof starts leaking because the roof is old and past its useful service life, no, the insurance company is not going to pay to replace that roof. That is something they expect you to do. Same thing with your furnace. That should have been replaced as well. So don't expect that's not what the insurance policy is for. The insurance policy is there to cover, accidental, unforeseen events, not things that are an eventuality. While many homeowners worry that filing a claim could lead to a rake height or policy review, avoiding claims often leads to greater expenses over time. An unrepaired problem grows costlier by the month, and the longer you wait, the harder it may be to get full coverage when you finally do need it. Homeowners cut their improvement budgets by an average of 42% in 2025, according to Guardian Service. As many as 2/3 say they've eliminated those budgets entirely. With so little wiggle room, homeowners are prioritizing only the most essential fixes. Cosmetic upgrades like painting, flooring, and decor are the first to be postponed, with 48% putting them off. Kitchen and bathroom remodels are next on the chopping block, despite being two of the most value-adding projects in a home. That is true. However, you can't live in a home that has a leaky roof. So there are essential things that need to be done before nice-to-haves like a remodeled kitchen can be considered. So that roof has to be replaced. The kitchen remodel is a nice, but we got to look at the essentials first. More concerning is the delay of critical systems and safety-related repairs. Less than a quarter of homeowners say they plan to move forward this year with window replacements, plumbing or electrical work, or roof repairs, all of which can lead to long-term damage if neglected. Even amid record heat waves, 14% of homeowners are delaying HVAC replacements, underlying just how far many are willing to stretch their systems to avoid new expenses. With professional labor costs rising, many homeowners are turning to familiar alternatives, doing it themselves. About 60% say they're tackling critical repairs on their own instead of hiring a contractor, according to Guardian Service. Younger homeowners are especially hands-on. 2 out of 3 Gen Z and millennial homeowners report using online videos and tutorials to guide their fixes. I've done that too. YouTube is a great resource to try and learn how to do these things on your own. But while DIY can save money in the short term, it comes with risks, especially if you forget to loop in your insurance provider. Failing to report major upgrades could jeopardize your extended or guaranteed replacement cost coverage. That coverage provides extra funds if your home costs more to rebuild than what's listed on your policy. That's true, but for most insurance companies, only if you're spending at least 30 to 40,000 at a minimum on this upgrade renovation that you're doing, then the insurance company requires you to report that to them. If you're just replacing the tiles in your bathroom and spending $700 to do that, the insurance company is not required to be informed of that sort of thing. So major renovations, that's what the insurance company is expecting you to inform them of. Plus such things as roof replacements, replacements of the furnace, any electrical upgrades, plumbing upgrades. You should inform your broker / agent / insurance company of those, because it looks good to the insurance company to see that you are maintaining your residence. So you're seen as a better risk, so you don't have to worry as much in the future about having the insurance company drop you because they don't see you as a good risk anymore. And that is it for me for today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like what I do here, please like and subscribe for more. Please share the video with those who you think might appreciate this information I'm passing along. Don't forget to follow Insurance Sound Canada on Twitter /X. And until next time, bye-bye.